but recorded in the desert. The sound you can hear now is the noise of British tanks moving into battle. It's the night of Sunday, Monday, November 1st, 2nd. And it's the early hours of the morning, and here on this desert, with the sand clouds whirling up behind each vehicle, British tanks in large numbers are moving into battle. Shells by the thousand are being pumped into the enemy, and now here we are at the side of one of these desert tracks, watching the armed might of the 8th Army go forward to engage the enemy. The moon, just half a moon, is shining down here, the starry night, and overhead there's not only the moon, but the flares which have been dropped, which are shining down on the desert and illuminating this battleground. Tank after tank is going past, just a few yards from the microphone as I speak now. One can't see very clearly. It's rather like being in a fog. It is indeed a fog, but the fog is a fog of sand, because the sand's very soft here, and each tank as it goes past turns up a great cloud.
This is the BBC Home and Forces programme. This is Bruce Belfridge. Here's some excellent news which has come during the past hour in the form of a communique from GHQ Cairo. It says, the Axis forces in the Western Desert, after 12 days and nights of ceaseless attacks by our land and air forces, are now in full retreat. It's known that the enemy's losses in killed and wounded have been exceptionally high. Up to date, we've destroyed more than 260 German and Italian tanks and captured or destroyed at least 270 guns.
World News Today, brought to you by Continental Radio and Television Corporation, makers of Admiral Radio, America's smart set. By shortwave broadcast, direct from world capitals, as well as the leading news centers of our own country, CBS correspondents are waiting to bring you a complete report from the world's political and battle fronts. But first, here's John Daly with a summary of headline news as received in New York.
The American invasion force has made landings at Oran and Algiers on the north coast of French North Africa and somewhere on the west coast. These first official details came in a War Department communique released about an hour ago, which listed the generals commanding the American units under Commander-in-Chief Lieutenant General Ike Eisenhower. Among the commands are Brigadier General Jimmy Doolittle for air and one of America's foremost tank experts, Major General George S. Patton, commanding the forces landing on the west coast, an indication that formidable armored units spearhead our attacks. The Vichy radio supplied some details of the landings on the west coast. They say that bridgeheads have been established both north and south of Casablanca, at Rabat in the north and at Safi in the south. And from the French reports, it's apparent that landing operations of a major scale are going on. Vichy also confirmed the landings on the north coast at Oran and Algiers. The German radio, quoting Spanish sources, reports that additional Allied fleet and transport units left Gibraltar today. There can be little doubt that our invasion forces are large. The Vichy radio estimates that we have thrown 140,000 men into the operation and adds that British divisions are already on the way to reinforce us. An earlier War Department communique made it clear that this operation has been carefully planned over a period of months, and nothing has been left out. Vichy reports already admit that some French troops revolted against the Vichy command, and there were broadcasts over the Casablanca radio reportedly asking Frenchmen to cooperate with the American invasion forces. We also have learned to use the fifth column. In Berlin, Adolf Hitler is right now making a speech on the eve of the 19th anniversary of the Munich Putsch. There can be little doubt that the German people are stunned by the invasion of Vichy North Africa by our troops. But so far in the speech, the best he has offered them is that he will prepare for all blows. CBS correspondent Charles Cullingwood is with the invasion forces, but as yet there are no communication facilities which he may use for a report. However, we can contact our correspondent in the other North African theater. For Cairo's reaction and the news there, we take you now to CBS Cairo, Winston Burdett reporting. It's all over but the shouting on this side of Libya. In the battle that knocked him out of Egypt, Rommel is believed to have lost at least 3/5 of his troops. The Axis armies crumbled as they fled, dropping huge pieces all the way to the border, jettisoning arms and men, abandoning whole units, especially Italian units, leaving hundreds of guns and tanks behind them and thousands of trucks, and half a dozen valuable headquarters and many, many thousand dead. Somewhere between Matruh and a place called Bagouche, German armor made its last hopeless stand. They had 28 tanks and 3 88-millimeter guns in that fight. This was probably most of what they had left in tanks at that time. My own guess is that Rommel today has salvaged enough tanks to form a football team with possibly a few subs for the last quarter. Yesterday, British armored cars were still herding in the stragglers. Around Fuka, many German troops fell out and let themselves be captured. West of Matruh, we were still picking up Italians by the thousands. I think this haul just about finished off the Italian armies in Egypt. Today, the British are tumbling west so fast that they have not been able to list the booty. We know now why the Luftwaffe has not been around for the past 3 days. Most of it is a blitz shambles lying around on captured airfields. Some of it is still intact. At one base, we found 5 Messerschmitt 109s ready to take off, with gas tanks full and bomb racks loaded. Somebody left in an awful hurry, and why they didn't fly away, I don't know. We also found dozens of American trucks, which came over here in Lease Len days, and were then captured by the Germans and used by them throughout the summer. One parking lot alone produced 60 vehicles, all with their ignition keys in place, and packed with the belongings of officers and men, who also were in a hurry to decamp, but then something happened and they found they were too late. Rommel now is falling back toward bases where he can pick up personnel and some extra supplies. But I can't see how he can make much of a stand in Libya. Rommel personally may make his next stop Benghazi or Berlin. But the fight on this side of Africa is going to be pure desert chase for several weeks to come. And now you will hear Larry Lasser, who has just come here from Moscow.
I've come to Cairo from another world. I came into a world of bright tropical sunshine, well-dressed people, and food aplenty. I left behind a world of drab gray monotone, of people in old clothes with set faces, a cold land of rain and snow squalls, the world that is called Moscow and Russia. Moscow and Cairo have at least one thing in common. They both believe that their war is the war.